It was a very busy weekend here in Washington, D.C., and I'm not just talking about all the celebrations around Independence Day. Now, over the weekend, members of the far right and the far left took to the streets of Washington. Now, the Proud Boys organized a free speech rally, while counter-protesters, several from the far left group Antifa, showed up to the Stop the Alt-Right rally. Hundreds of police officers surrounded the area in an attempt to keep both sides apart. RT correspondent Sara Montes was there and brings us this story.
We're here in Washington, D.C., where there are several hundreds of protesters from both sides of promoting free speech, both sides of the political aisle. On one side in Pershing Park, we have Antifa, and on the other side, we have Proud Boys in Freedom Plaza, just blocks away from the White House, where the two groups are separated by a barricade of police presence. There is multiple police cars, police on bikes, hundreds of police officers here in D.C. making sure the protests do not become violent.
Several hundred conservatives, including members of Proud Boys, a far-right extremist group, gathered in Freedom Plaza, where several conservative leaders spoke out against censorship on social media and anti-conservative bias.
I stood up and I disrupted the congressional hearing, right? And I called Jack Dorsey a liar because he was committing perjury when he was lying to members of Congress and our taxpayer dollars, saying that he doesn't censor and shadow ban conservatives.
Former Breitbart editor Milo Yiannopoulos was among the lineup of speakers, but they were outnumbered by counter-protesters who demonstrated across the street, many of whom included members of the far-left extremist group Antifa. Police were on high alert as members of Antifa attempted to penetrate various police barriers surrounding Pershing Park. Many roads were blocked off and shut down around the plaza as police tried to avoid a repeat of last week's incidents in Portland, Oregon. Earlier this week, Washington police said they were prepared for any situation, given their frequent experience with similar political protests. While members of Antifa refused to comment, several counter-protesters voiced their motivations for attending.
I'm here to stand up against white supremacy.
I'm here to, in solidarity, Nazis and fascists aren't welcome in our town.
Demonstrators on the conservative side expressed general concern for freedom of speech.
I'm here to support free speech. It's a free speech rally. That's all we're about.
At the end of the day, we're all people. No matter if we wear a red Make America Great Again hat or not, we're able to have a conversation about where we stand on certain issues.
One protester claimed he was assaulted by Antifa while trying to have a conversation with them about their views.
A crowd of Antifa was just walking by. One of them decided to rip my hat off of my head, and then now they want to deny it. These people are no better than the neo-Nazis.
The heat index is almost 100 degrees here in Washington, D.C. today, but that didn't stop the hundreds of people who showed up. Now, overall, we're hearing a lot of the same issues from both sides of these protests, reiterating things from hate speech to freedom of speech, things that like the Trump administration policies in regards to particularly immigration. Now, it remains unclear and it remains to be seen if both sides can come together for dialogue, but from what we've seen today, it really is unclear if it'll be possible anytime soon. Reporting in Washington, Sara Montes, RT.
Okay, that was Saturday. I had to bring Sara in today. I know you worked on Saturday. She had to bring us in for more to this story. It looked not only very hot out there, but obviously a lot of hot temperatures. But they knew this was coming. It was expected. The police were ready. What else did you see? Was it as rowdy as you were expecting it to be?
Honestly, I was expecting it to be a lot rowdier. But then again, there were headlines that said Antifa were going to throw chemicals at the Proud Boys. So D.C. was prepared, and they did a fantastic job, D.C. police, in really separating both sides. I mean, there was a barricade really in between Antifa on one side, Proud Boys on the other side, and there were blocks closed down with police barricades. Now, Antifa at one point did break out of the barricade and tried to go around to the Proud Boys side, but police did not allow them to go through. So they were at one point trying to take over the streets. Police were trying to get them to go on the sidewalk, which they eventually did and listened. So luckily it did not get violent. However, there were some minor fights here and there. But there was one person we spoke to that had a really good message, and it was one of peace and understanding. Let's take a listen to what he said.
Regardless of what you believe in, I just try to stand against violence. And so that's why I show up, my shirt, Free Hugs, lets people know, look, I'm here in peace, and I think everyone should do the same.
Well, that's the thing that I have to ask you, Sarah. You have someone there, someone that doesn't identify with Antifa or Proud Boys, but just wants to see something good happen. Were there those kind of in-the-middle people that probably didn't necessarily want to belong to either side?
Well, yes, and there were even some people that we spoke to there that were wearing the Make America Great Again hats who said that this protest wasn't nearly as bad as the ones from inauguration were, where one of them said he had his hat thrown in a fire during those protests. This time, luckily, no violence, but he said he tried to go to the Antifa side to have a conversation. They refused. Even when I went over there to ask them if they would say something to me on camera, a lot of them just ignored me. But there were some of those protesters from Antifa side who weren't necessarily from Antifa, but were willing to say that they wanted to stand up to free speech. So both sides standing up to freedom of speech, to hate speech.
They both want the same thing is the key to this.
Right.
The question is, how do they actually accomplish it? So many
dialogue
times,
maybe, but
well,
again,
dialogue, talking to each other.
It's been really hard to get both together.
Well, it's interesting, and thank gosh there was no violence thanks to our men in blue, the men and women in blue who kept everybody organized and had the heads up. We didn't see the chaos that we've seen in some of these other marches. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.